don't often see a girl with a lap full of shoes, do you? Well, now you have. I have shoes to show you. Remember I told you that people are buying my shoes. I'm so excited that they have so many more miles to travel, and they're going to do it with new friends and new experiences. I just wish I could be a little thread in the soul to see the soul of the whole journey. But I thought I'd at least show you the ones that have sold each week. And so this time, these are the shoes that sold. I can tell you just little bits about each pair of shoes. First of all, I sign the shoes for whoever buys them. So that's fine. I try to sign them so that it doesn't wear off as they're traveling the globe. So I hope they last, the signatures. But this is a kind of a funny story in a way. One day, a collector of our work who lives in New Jersey or New York called me up and said, "Let's go shopping." Well, I never go shopping. I'd never been shopping. We were on Madison Avenue, our store, but of course we were always working. So to hear someone say, "Let's go shopping," I thought, you know, I never do what girls do. So I'm going to go shopping with this person. She towers above me like a model. She's so gorgeous and elegant. I think she was the queen of New Jersey for a spell, or whatever they call it. And so she always wore high heels and long, sinuous legs, and she was just always gorgeous. And so we went into this shoe shop, which I love. I can't remember the name of the designer of this that the shoe shop is named after. These were made by a Spanish designer, but in the shoe shop. But aren't they beautiful? And I never bought high heels with my bare toes coming through. It was like I was walking around barefoot, going downhill all the time. But isn't it pretty how the woven grasses complement all the textures in the shoe? And they're a little bit worn on the heel, but nowhere else. That would be easy to replace. But I just wanted to tell you what fun it was discovering these shoes, putting them on, and walking around like a real lady. I'll never forget that. Normally, I'm a real working girl. So, here they are. Somebody is taking these home. And now, here's another pair. This is more my speed. I was taking tap dancing lessons at Steps in New York. It's a school for ballet and tap. And I was enjoying it so much because my whole life was about ballet, not about tap. So I had so much fun learning how to tap, and I have my own tap shoes, which I nailed the taps onto the bottom of a regular shoe. They're up online to buy also. So that's what I was learning to tap in. But whilst I was there, I saw these shoes. They're tap shoes, but I didn't get the taps put on them because I just love them so much as shoes to wear. See, it says Miller and Ben tap shoes inside. Can you see that? Wait, I'll help you read it. It says Jazz Tap Center. You see? And I just put my own little plaid ribbons in them. And I've worn them, but they never wear out. And see, even the threads are still there. See the threads? And yet I've worn them so many times, but I thought it would be so great to see them on somebody else and for them to see the world from a new perspective. So they're going to go for a travel. I don't even know how far they're going, but it's going to be an adventure, and I'm going to be dreaming it with them. There's one more pair of shoes from this week's activity online, and it's these. These are, you know, your classic Ralph Lauren shoes, beautiful yellow suede shoes with everything, again, in perfect shape, and our signature on the bottom. Look how good, look how beautiful the heels are. So, the only trouble is, I don't have a story to tell you with these shoes. So I decided to put a story into them. Do you want to see it? Okay. And whoever bought these shoes, they're already sold, is going to get to have this story. Do you know what these are? These are apricot pits. And last night, in the middle of the night, this wonderful man named Nikolai, who lives on Yankee, he lives in that cabin right over there. Behind all those tools, there's a beautiful cabin with a little salon and a bunk bedroom. And he, every night, he comes back from working at a Russian grocery store, a very elegant Russian grocery store that has everything beautifully made, pastries and fancy meats and beautiful treats from every place really in the world. And he always brings me a surprise, or sometimes just fresh fruit, which is great. And last night he brought me a bag of apricots that were so ripe. When I bit one, they're like almost red, and they were quite large. And I don't know if I ever told you this, my friends, but I grew up in an apricot orchard. And after we moved out of the city of San Francisco, we moved into the most distant countryside. To me, it felt like it was hundreds of miles away. It was in the Santa Clara Valley, where it was hundreds of miles of apricot orchards. And sometimes trimming the edges would be walnuts, some rows of walnuts, or some rows of almonds, but mostly apricots. And I just lived in apricot trees. Even in the winter, I'd climb up in an apricot tree and wait and watch what was happening as the apricots were coming alive, little by little by little, in the early spring, and until they formed into a full-on apricots. And then I just sat up there like a monkey eating apricots all day long. And then Mama and Papa told us that Papa was asked to manage a company in Indiana, Kentuckiana, and that we were going to move. And I didn't know what to do. I had a hard time, but in our family, we don't emphasize the hard times, we emphasize the good. And I knew I couldn't complain or worry or, make it hard for my parents, because they were only trying to help their growing family to have what we needed. So when we moved to Indiana, there was only one thing that I had to do before I left. We lived in one of the old-time houses that we built many, many years before. It was typical of the way people lived out in the wilderness, like adobe houses and stucco and tile window frames. They were always tile. And it was just a different kind of life than what we see today. And when I knew we were leaving for good, I found out that we wouldn't be allowed to cross the border of California if we had anything to do with agriculture. And my mama and papa said I had a bucket of seeds I was going to take, and I was going to plant an orchard when we got to Indiana. And they said, you can't take anything. You have to leave everything in its natural habitat right here. So when no one was looking, early one morning, the morning we were leaving, I remembered there was a loose board in the floor of our my sister's and my shared bedroom. So I picked up the board and I took some apricot pits and 2 bobby pins. I don't know why I put the bobby pins, but and I took the apricots pits and put them underneath the floor and closed it down so no one could see. And I knew that I was going to come back someday and find the apricots and start an apricot orchard. Well, by the time we got back to California, they had plowed up every old house and every apricot tree for miles away. Everything was bulldozed over. It was just lifeless. And they built it into the beginnings of the .com world. I guess at that time nobody knew what that was. I don't know what they were calling it, but it wasn't the Santa Clara Valley anymore as we knew it. And I ran down to where our house was. I thought our house was still there, but it was just, rubble. And I stirred around in the earth and I looked for boards and I tried to find where I would have possibly had these apricot seeds, and they were gone. Everything was gone. And when I bit into the apricot last night, the first one, I don't know whether it was juice running down my cheeks or tears running down my eyes, because I was so touched by having these apricots. They were so ripe and rosy. They were like they were ripened right on the tree. They were even still warm. I could feel the sun beaming through them. I not had since then an apricot that tasted like a real apricot. These were just exactly what it's like. And I just stood there in the middle of the night with these wonderful 4 apricots. And I saved the pits again. And you know what I'm going to do? Because this is my only story that I can tell you. I'm going to put these in the toe of these shoes. And whoever gets this pair of shoes, I don't know who it is, they already bought them, they can start their own apricot orchard. Because these are fresh, they haven't been frozen or anything. So that's my story for today. Much love to all of you. And I hope I have a story for the next time I come and tell you about things, because nothing is here just by itself. Everything has a story that brought it here. And we're all going somewhere because of that story. It's taking us on walks far up and above and over the mountains and over the hills to a new world of thought every time. So I'm very pleased to share these as your first steps. Thank you, everybody. Much love to you. Bye-bye.